All right, let's just jump right in with a pretty wild thought. What if almost everything you've been taught about money is just wrong? What if financial success has, I don't know, almost nothing to do with how smart you are or what degree you have or how good you are with spreadsheets? What if it's really all about how you behave? That's the huge idea at the heart of Morgan Housel's book. And honestly, it changes the game.
And to really get a grip on this, we've got to look at a story. It's a tale of two guys, polar opposites, whose lives perfectly, I mean perfectly, capture the central mystery about money. So, in one corner, you've got this guy, Ronald Reed. He was a janitor, a gas station attendant, lived a really simple life in a small house. His hobby? Chopping firewood. And what he did was, he patiently took his modest savings and just put them into big, stable companies, blue chip stocks. When he passed away, he had a fortune of over $8 million, and he left most of it to his local hospital and library. Now, in the other corner, Richard Fuscone. We're talking Harvard-educated, a big-shot executive at Merrill Lynch. He lived in this massive 18,000 square foot mansion that had 11 bathrooms and 2 pools. He made an absolute fortune and then, boom, went bankrupt, lost it all in the 2008 financial crisis.
So let's just pause on that for a second. The janitor becomes a multimillionaire philanthropist, while the Harvard-educated finance exec goes completely broke. I mean, how is that even possible? The janitor had zero formal training, no powerful friends, no fancy algorithms. The executive, he had all of that and more.
And this story, it just perfectly sums up the answer. See, doing well with money isn't a hard science like physics. It's a soft skill. It's all about psychology. Like Morgan Housel says, it's not about what you know, it's about how you behave. It's that simple. Ronald Reed was patient. Richard Fuscone was greedy. And at the end of the day, that difference in behavior turned out to be way more powerful than any difference in their resumes.
Okay, so if behavior is the name of the game, then we have to ask the next logical question, right? Why do people act the way they do with money? Why do some of us take these massive risks while others hoard every penny? Well, the surprising answer is no one's actually crazy.
Here's why. Every single one of us sees the financial world through our own little unique lens. It's a lens that's been shaped by our personal history, where we grew up, when we grew up, what our parents believed about money, all of it. That tiny little slice of personal experience, that's what forms like 80% of what you believe about how the entire world works. So a financial decision that looks absolutely insane to you might seem completely logical to someone else, all because their lens is different from yours.
Okay, for example, let's say you were born in the 1970s. That means in your teens and 20s, your most impressionable years, you watched the stock market just explode. It went up and up and up. So what did you learn? You learned that stocks are a one-way ticket to wealth. And that experience, it literally wires your brain to be optimistic about investing, probably for the rest of your life.
But now, let's say you were born just a decade earlier, in the 1960s. Your formative experience wasn't a bull market. It was crippling inflation. You watched the value of the dollar get absolutely crushed. You learned that holding cash was a terrible idea because prices could just spiral out of control. So you see, you have two equally intelligent people living in the same country who end up with completely opposite views on money, and it's all just because of the decade they were born in. Neither of them is crazy. Their experiences are just different.
So this all leads us to another really big idea. Our financial outcomes, they aren't just a product of our behavior. No, they're also massively shaped by two forces we almost always overlook: luck and its identical twin, risk.
And this quote nails it perfectly. We love to tell ourselves these neat little stories, that success comes only from hard work and failure is just the result of bad choices. But the reality, it's a lot messier. The truth is, every single outcome is a mix of what we do and forces that are completely outside of our control. Think about Bill Gates for a second. Yeah, he's a genius, no question. An incredibly hard worker, for sure. But he also had one of the most amazing strokes of luck you can imagine. The odds were literally 1 in a million. He just happened to go to Lakeside, which was one of the only high schools in the entire world in 1968 that had a computer. A computer! And it was all because of a forward-thinking teacher and a fundraiser. That head start he got, you can't even put a price on it. But here's the thing. For every Bill Gates, there's a flip side. He had a best friend at that school, a guy named Kent Evans, and everyone said Kent was just as brilliant, just as driven, just as amazing with that computer. The two of them were planning to start a company together, but Kent was hit by the other side of that 1 in a million chance, risk. He died in a mountaineering accident before they even graduated. It's the same force, luck and risk.
with the same power, just pointing in opposite directions. They're two sides of the very same coin.
Okay, so let's put this all together. We know behavior is key, and we know luck and risk are a huge deal. So, how do you actually succeed? Well, this brings us to another one of those ideas that seems totally backwards at first. Getting rich and staying rich are two completely different skills.
All right, here's how to think about it. Getting wealthy, that's all about offense. It requires taking risks, being optimistic, really putting yourself out there. Think of a trader like Jesse Livermore, who made an absolute killing by betting big against the market in 1929. Pure offense. But staying wealthy, that's defense. It requires humility, a little bit of paranoia even. It's the fear that everything you've made can disappear just as fast. Livermore, he couldn't flip that switch. He stayed on offense, taking bigger and bigger risks until he lost it all. See? Getting rich is one skill, staying rich is another.
So what does this tell us? The single most powerful skill in this whole game isn't being a genius stock picker. It's not about finding the next Amazon. It's just survival. Just staying in the game. I mean, look at the big picture. Despite all the chaos, the long-term trend of the economy is up. The whole key is just being able to stick around long enough to ride that wave.
And when I say sticking around, think about what that really means. It means you have to survive recessions, world wars, pandemics, market crashes over and over again. All of that chaos is part of the journey. The goal isn't to perfectly time the market and avoid all the bad stuff, because you can't. The real goal is to make sure that when the bad stuff happens, it doesn't take you out of the game completely.
And you know what? This is the real secret to Warren Buffett's success. We all think it's his genius for picking stocks. And yeah, he's great at it, but his real superpower? It's longevity. He just survived. He started investing when he was a little kid and he never quit. He made it through every single recession and market crash without panicking or getting wiped out. And by doing that, he let the magic of compounding, where your money starts making its own money, work for like 75 years straight. Survival. That's his superpower.
Which brings us to the last and maybe the most important question of all. Why are we even doing this? What's the point of all this saving and investing? What's the real goal of having money? I promise you, it's probably not what you think it is.
It's not about the fancy cars or the big houses, the highest form of wealth. The real prize is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. Money's greatest value is that it gives you control over your own time. It's freedom. That is the ultimate dividend it pays.
And look, this isn't just some nice, fluffy idea. It's actually backed by solid research. A psychologist named Angus Campbell studied happiness. And you know what he found? Having a strong sense of control over your own life is a better predictor of happiness than your salary, how big your house is, or how fancy your job title is. That control, that autonomy, that's the real stuff. That's the true measure of well-being.
So this whole thing really leaves us with a question to ask ourselves. Instead of obsessing over how can I get the absolute highest returns, maybe a much better question is, how can I use my money to get a little more control over my time? Because finding the answer to that question, well, that just might be the best financial plan you'll ever make. So I'll leave you with this. What would you do if you had complete control over your time?